My dad was in prison ever since I was 4 years old. Around my neighborhood, people always assumed that our family was doing well, that my Chinese stepdad was actually holding a good job, and that my mom was actually secure in this relationship because they knew who my biological father was. In those moments, it would always be scary to come home after school. So I would always walk very slowly because I knew that after school, this is kind of what I would face. This is what I would go home to. And we would get hit with all sorts of things like belts, baseball bats. So I always recall that ringing sound. Every time I get hit on the head, I would actually be a little bit dizzy. When my mom found out that he was abusing us, my mom actually fell into a depression after that happened. And so my mom didn't work. This meant that we didn't have any income coming into the household and we needed to fend for ourselves. What that looked like was stealing from the shops nearby, going out to play soccer just so that we didn't have to be home to see my mom in such a depressed state. Growing up, we did not come with much. We had a lot of financial struggles as we went through life, day to day. My mom worked as a security officer, and we live life paycheck to paycheck law, and that's how we sustain ourselves. Our financial security was never really there. It was a foreign idea to me. My dad was in prison ever since I was 4 years old. He went into prison 2010, and he was in prison all the way to 2016. And during that time, we had a Chinese stepdad. He did a really good job raising us initially, but as the years went on, he actually became abusive. He would beat us, and we would always come home fearing that moment where we would actually get scolded or get beaten before my mom came back from work. My stepdad would come back from work at around 5 p.m. My mom would come back from work around 8 p.m. So my dad would go and fetch her from work. So during that time period was when we normally would get beat. So I would always walk very slowly because I knew that after school, this is kind of what I would face. This is what I would go home to. And we would get hit with all sorts of things like belts, baseball bats. Every time I would recall when I got beat, like the sound of when like you get hit in the head and then there's that ringing sound. So I always recall that ringing sound as though like I always get a concussion. So every time I get hit on the head, I'll actually be a little bit dizzy and then I have to collect myself. My siblings did not want to tell my mom that he was actually beating us because it didn't feel like it was something that we could actually explain to our parents. I mean to our mom. It felt as though what we were going to rationalize to her wasn't a good enough reason. So we kept it under wraps. And we always felt that what my stepdad was doing was right because he's the adult and we were naughty. And so that was always what we lived with for that few years until 2016 came. And then somewhere in between then, my mom found out that we were actually getting abused by him. And my mom never knew because she always thought we were getting disciplined. And this is what happened. My mom would say, "Oh, Papa beat you ah." Then we would say, "Yeah, we naughty." And that's all the reason we would give. So my mom always assumed that that was just the way things were. But my mom never knew the extent of what my dad would actually do. During that time, it was weird to navigate because on the outside, people always thought that my family was together. Around my neighborhood, people always assumed that our family was doing well. My Chinese stepdad was actually holding a good job, and that my mom was actually secure in this relationship because they knew who my biological father was, and so they knew that he went into prison. My Chinese stepdad came in the picture and actually made things right, but little did they know what was happening at home. Everybody in this household was actually getting like beaten and abused. When my mom found out that he was abusing us, my mom decided to break up with him because they weren't married yet. My mom decided to break up with him and kick him out of the house. over the following year, my mom actually fell into a depression after that happened, and so my mom didn't work. This meant that we didn't have any income coming into the household, and we needed to fend for ourselves. And what that looked like was stealing from the shops nearby, going out to play soccer just so that we didn't have to be home to see my mom in such a depressed state. During those times, I think I lived life trying to find my own way of navigating. During then, I was actually like I had a crush on this girl in class, and I liked her quite a lot actually. So I would actually watch tarot card videos because I wanted to find out what it meant to actually like get someone to like you. Every single day actually in class, after everybody left class, I would watch these tarot card videos, these readings, and actually try to receive from them and try to learn about whether I could actually get this girl to like me. It was then during the school holidays that I contracted COVID-19, and it was the first big wave, and so I really thought I was going to die. So I decided that it was best if I confessed to her, and I got rejected, and that actually made me really, really, really depressed, and I felt like my life had no more purpose or meaning, and so I felt really worthless, and that got me into a state of depression, and so I went through a really dark time during that holiday period, trying to recover from COVID, and also figuring out how I would enter school the next year. During my depressive period, I actually really felt like I wanted to die, and I had a lot of suicidal thoughts, and also I did a lot of self-harm, and so I used to punch myself. So I would punch myself in the head and I'm in the face, and I would try my best to hurt myself in ways that people couldn't see that I was hurting myself, so that no marks were left. But at some point I decided that cutting myself might actually be the best way to go about navigating this pain. I went out and bought a penknife, and then I came back home and I made sure that no one was home, and then I cut 5 lines on my left forearm, and then I marked down that date in my calendar, and I told myself that like this day will be important to me because I actually cut myself. Because of that, I felt like I actually reached a milestone because I actually had the bravery to cut myself. And shortly after, I think my mom found out. I was washing dishes, and then they saw that on my wrist I was cut, and then they made it a big hoo-ha, and then I I realized that I shouldn't have cut myself. It was actually then where God encountered me through Christian social media, because on TikTok, my FYP, my For You page, was starting to gain more and more Christian traction, and so more Christian content creators appeared in my feed. As that went on, we also grew closer to the tuition teacher, one of these tuition teachers at the tuition center, and she actually invited us to church. And from then, we actually got exposed to what Christianity really meant. And so from there, I actually decided to explore the faith more, and I started to learn more about who this Jesus really was and how much he really loved me. And there were a few particular sermon clips that talked about your pain having a purpose, and it really resonated with me, and I felt as though God was speaking to me through the screen. And so because of that, I decided to go for the year-end church camp. And during that year-end church camp, I was asking God, please send someone to speak to me. And there was a girl, like older girl in the church, and she actually prayed for me. And from there, we actually connected, and she actually helped me to journey through my first year of faith. And from there, I realized that Jesus actually really cares about me, and he actually sent people my way to take care of me, even when I felt that I had nobody. Me and my siblings, along with my friends from the tuition center, we actually decided to start going to church together. And so from there, we formed a really very close-knit friend group. because we were all neighbors actually. We all stayed in the same block. But then came 2019 when COVID hit. That's when my friends and I actually like stopped going to church, and then from there, we actually just decided to live our own life separately. So we disbanded. So I actually felt very lonely going back to church because previously we were known as the kids that came from the tuition center. So we were one group, and people always knew that we were one pack. But then after COVID, when COVID started to dissolve and circuit breaker ended, we were actually allowed to go back to church, like go back to regular physical services. But then my friends and my siblings did not attend, so I felt very dejected. I felt alone. I asked God, why is it that I found my faith, but my friends and siblings cannot come to that same realization, and now I'm left alone in a church where I don't know anybody. And so I felt that I had to fight for myself in a church, to fight for my own name. And I decided to start serving more, put on this actually like good boy persona, because previously I was actually quite a rowdy kid. So I would get scolded during cell group, and I'll get dragged out, and I would get like tickled. Because of that, the church leaders had a perspective of me that I will always be that rowdy guy. I wanted to change their perspective, so I decided to serve in church, and I decided to change the way I lived. And through that, I actually decided to also explore Christian community in school. And from there, I actually found that there are a lot of different communities where different churches come together, and because they're students, they can form like groups, and they meet for the purpose of knowing Jesus better and how to live out their faith as a student better. And so from there, I actually joined different Christian groups. I got heavily involved, and I started serving regularly with them. And I didn't realize it back then, but now I realize that actually what I was doing was trying to fight for my own name. Because as I spoke to a lot of Christian people, I realized that their life was not like mine. They had a good financial background. They had both parents who like loved and cared about them, and their siblings were people who actually would actually be there to support them. And so I felt that this wasn't the life I had, but because I'm in church, I need to pretend like I have it all together. So I decided to serve more, and I decided to create a name for myself so that people couldn't find anything to talk. I tried my very best to actually serve well and actually give people the impression that I had it all together. A few months after that, I actually decided to get baptized, and then I actually went through like baptism class and all that. And then I remember on my baptism day, because of all the things that happened, the rejection, the self-harm, and at that time also, that girl from the church, that older girl from the church camp was actually joining with me. And I realized that at that time, like at that moment, I realized actually there are people around me who love me and care about me, and my pain can have a purpose. And now I'm getting baptized, and I'm declaring that I want to be free. And so at that moment, I told God that actually, after, like when I got baptized, I'm going to declare that I shall have no part with my self, like my low self-esteem, my low self-worth, and my depressive thoughts. And so I decided to make the change to see myself how God sees me. And yeah, after that, I really saw that God truly loved me, and that I didn't need to die. I didn't need to end my life because this girl didn't like me, or I didn't do as well as the other guy in school, or that my family came from this background. But that the Father actually saw me as his son, and he fearfully and wonderfully made me because he has a purpose for me on this earth. It was at that moment that I realized that I cannot let my past get a hold of me, and I had to look ahead to what God has prepared for me. And so I am on that journey currently, looking to what God has for me, even as a polytechnic student studying music. My life looked like something that most churchgoers do not experience. And I felt a lot more similar to the world and people who didn't believe in the faith. But now it came to a point where I realized that God loves me regardless of my upbringing, regardless of my financial situation, and regardless of my mental health state. And because of that, I actually realized that my life was worth living, and I didn't have to compare and compete with the people around me to do better. And I didn't have to put on a mask so that people saw me as good. Because even if I was bad, Jesus forgave me already. I realized that my personal relationship with God did not have to look like everyone else's, because the journey that I went through and the journey that God brought me through was very different from most people that I know. And that's okay, because Jesus continues to work through me and every one of us, and we are all chasing after the same goal. Mommy, if you're watching this, I want to say that I love you and I forgive you for everything that you did. You did your best to raise me, and I wouldn't even be here without you. You single-handedly raised me, and I know that God has placed you in my life with such resilience and effort, and really your drive to love me and all of us, all four of us. And I really deeply appreciate you, and know that God has actually used you to shape me to be who I am today. I love you, Mommy.